talk about a posterior pelvic tilt. That may be a term you've heard with your training programs or something you've read online, but a pelvic tilt refers to the position that your pelvis is in. It can tilt anteriorly or posteriorly. And so today I want to go over a few different ways that you can practice the posterior pelvic tilt. Now let me go ahead and come into a kneeling position and demonstrate that for you. So what I mean by a neutral pelvis is relatively this natural position that most of us are in, okay? And then some people are more naturally in a posterior or anterior, but go ahead and find kind of what you think is a neutral position. To go into an anterior pelvic tilt, you're going to draw the ASIS, which is the part of the pelvis right here, bring them down closer toward the front of your thighs. So it's almost like you're flexing the hips just slightly or sticking that tailbone back, okay? That is called an anterior pelvic tilt. It's creating more arch in the lumbar spine. You're tilting that pelvis forward and the abs are elongated. To do the opposite, the posterior pelvic tilt, you want to bring the ASIS or the front of the pelvis toward the lower ribs. So you're contracting or shortening those abdominal muscles to pull up here, kind of tucking the tailbone under this time as opposed to back. So tucking the tailbone, drawing the abs to the spine, contracting those abdominals gives you a posterior pelvic tilt. And so now I want to show you 3 ways you can practice it lying down. So let's start the posterior pelvic tilt practice lying down in a supine position. I like this way because you have better proprioceptive feeling to feel if your lumbar spine is against the mat or not. So I'm in my neutral pelvic position right here. You should be able to slide your hands under your lower back in a neutral position. Now, to go into an anterior tilt, I would go this way and arch it more. Today we're going to practice that posterior tilt, which is great at engaging your core. So to do the posterior pelvic tilt, you're once again going to draw the ASIS part of the pelvic bones up toward the lower ribs. As you do that, the belly button's drawing down toward the spine. You're contracting your abdominals, tightening them here, and you're flattening your back, okay? I like to pretend like there's a little gummy bear under your lower back. And as you posteriorly pelvic tilt, you're smushing that gummy bear down just for a second, and then release, okay? Now, one thing I found that some people do incorrectly is they use their legs to do this motion. I don't want you to press with the legs to get that tilt. I don't want you to squeeze the glutes to get that tilt. We're not working the legs or the glutes on this one. We're working the abdominals. So make sure that this is all relaxed and all the movement is coming from your core, okay? So that's one way to practice in a supine position with the legs bent. A second way, you can bring your legs to a tabletop position like so, about 90 degrees bend in the legs. Now, same thing, start in a neutral position, slight space, and then when you're ready, you're going to do your posterior pelvic tilt, flattening the back, okay? The knees may come in slightly toward you. That's natural as that pelvis kind of tilts underneath and you tuck that tailbone. That's totally fine. And this is just another way, a little bit more advanced way to do that pelvic tilt, okay? The third way, which is even harder, you're going to straighten the legs out. So straighten them out, keep those toes pointed. When you're ready, same thing. Pelvic tilt, flatten it down, and relax. And tilt, and relax. Alright, so there's 3 different ways that you can practice the posterior pelvic tilts. Just remember, if you're doing it correctly, you should feel it in your core, and this is a great thing to do before you do any exercises. So if I'm doing a core exercise, most of the time, I'm going to do my posterior pelvic tilt first and then go into the core exercise, the main movement of the exercise, because I'm going to get much better abdominal activation if I do that tilt first and engage them. So try that at home. I hope that was helpful. See you guys next time.